What is up, guys? We've got another video for you today. This one's going to be focused on a really simple yet pretty effective grinder, especially in the early game of CubeCraft Skyblock here. So this is focused on chickens and ocelots, so you will need to have unlocked the jungle island in order to build this, but basically this is a really effective way to get chicken and feathers. In the early game, you can actually sell the items that they drop for a decent amount of money, at least at that point in the game. So this is what we're going to build today. Let's go ahead and hop over to our creative world and see how it's done. Before we get into the build, I wanted to call out a couple of rates of item drops just real quick for you guys to give you a sense of what kind of volume this thing should produce. To give you an idea of that, I put one chicken spawner that's level 1, one ocelot spawner in the farm, and in about an hour what that nets out to is 372 chicken and about 300 feathers, and that's just per spawner. And in terms of the Skyblock coins, or the CubeCraft coins, you get about 5,600 coins worth of chicken and about 6,600 coins worth of feathers. So add those two together and you're looking at a little over 12k per hour in chickens and feathers, without really having to do anything. So again, in the early game, when you're not really getting a lot of income from automated sources, this kind of coin isn't that bad, and is just another way to supplement your coin income in that part of the game. Before we get into the build, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the materials needed to get this thing going. It's really pretty simple. All you need are a couple of chests. I'm going to use 4 in this case, but really the number of chests depends on how many layers of storage you want for the drops. You'll need 7 hoppers. Technically you can do this with only 1, but 7's a little bit more efficient, and I'll talk about that when the time comes. You'll need a couple of stacks of building blocks, some water buckets, and of course an ocelot spawner and a chicken spawner. So that's really all there is to it. Let's go ahead and jump into the build. So the first thing we're going to do is, in this case I've built the platform a couple blocks up off the ground. This will just make it a little bit easier to build on your island. You don't have to do this, it just makes the process a little bit simpler. The size of the square you'll see here, the rectangle, it's 11 blocks deep by 9 blocks wide. Technically you can make this a little bit smaller or larger if you want to, it'll still work. This is just the size of what we have on our island, and it works pretty well. The first thing we're going to do is build the initial platform here that the chickens will spawn on, along with the ocelots initially. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the third block from the front. So that's the front, 1, 2, 3. Come right here. We'll take 1 down, 1 over, and then we'll just bring this all the way over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the inside of this so that we can have an area where water can flow. Alright, now that we've got that section all filled in, what we're going to go ahead and do is build up the walls about 5 or 6 blocks, just to make sure that they are high enough so that when the spawners are spawning creatures, they don't actually spawn on the walls and make the farm less efficient, or even make the chickens start running around on your island. So I'm going to go ahead and build the walls up to about that height, and then we'll keep going. Cool, so now we've got the box made, and the next step is going to be to build out the little trench that the chickens and ocelots will fall into and ultimately duke it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the initial edge that we've got here on the front, and we're going to take this down 1 block, 2 blocks, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill in this part with whatever block you're using to build so that it's ultimately too tall. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our chest here. Nope, going to go 1 down. So we'll put our initial chest here, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a line of hoppers that goes into the chest. This is where I mentioned earlier in the video where you don't necessarily need to have every single hopper here if you don't have the iron to do it. Technically, you can just use a single hopper here and then create a water stream to funnel all the items in there. The only reason that we didn't do it is when the ocelots hit the chickens, they might bounce away and the water kind of messes things up and makes it a little bit more inefficient. So basically you're going to have this chamber here, and then the last thing we need to do is just wrap this chamber up with blocks to make sure that nothing can get out once the chickens and ocelots spawn in there. This is what you can see here is we're filling that in. And you can fill it in however you want to. But basically we have a 2-block tall trench where they will fall into, and then we'll go ahead and fill in this wall here. If you wanted to, you could put glass in here or something so you could see. Glass is fairly expensive on CubeCraft, so you don't need to do that. But basically we've got a box that looks like this. Pretty much the final step for putting in your spawners is getting your water in place. This is pretty straightforward. The reason we built this the size that we did, at least the depth, is so that it's just easy enough to come back here, put some water blocks that'll take everything all the way to the edge and cause it to fall in the trench. The next thing you'll want to do is ultimately place your spawners. Technically you can place them in the floor or in the walls or even hovering above the water. Whatever you really want to do there is not too big of a deal. I'm just going to go ahead and put them in the wall here. So these are just 2 example spawners, and then I should be able to turn these into ocelots and chickens. Alright, so what you'll see here is really the mechanic of how the game works. So ocelots attack chickens, and it actually does cause them to drop what they are carrying, so in this case raw chicken and feathers. In this example, it's going to be spawning lots of ocelots. I'm not sure exactly how many are going to spawn here. In CubeCraft, it'll only spawn, I believe, like 3, maybe 5 total. But you can see here, if I just go ahead and manually spawn in some chickens, what's going to happen is they're going to fall in here. The ocelots are going to start killing them, and if we go down here into our chest, you can see it's starting to collect the loot. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Again, it's a really simple farm. There's not a lot to it. We don't currently use ours anymore because we don't have a huge need for chicken and ocelots, or chicken and feathers, I should say. But again, in the early game, once you unlock the jungle island, this is another really simple grinder you can create. You need feathers for a couple quests anyways, and then it's just another easy way where you don't have to do anything and you can start making money. I guess in that case, in the jungle island, if that's as far as you've gotten, you might not have, you won't have hoppers yet. But again, you can still create a little trench where the ocelots can kill chickens, and you can even just stand there and AFK there and collect the drops. Well, there you have it, guys. That concludes the tutorial on how to build the chicken grinder. Hopefully you guys found that useful and can actually build something like this, or even just similar to this, in your own islands to get some good loot in relation to chicken and feathers. I know this helped us out a lot when we first built it. And even though we don't really use it anymore, I'm probably going to delete these spawners after we sign off here. But yeah, if you liked the video, I'd appreciate if you would like it. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave those below as well. And stay tuned for more tutorial videos in the near future.